Okay, as I mentioned, I wanted to share a quick video on virtual private networks, otherwise known as VPNs. So here's a good infographic. So basically with a VPN, a virtual private network, and you'll see them in a lot of commercial companies, typically in financial services, you're extending a private network onto a public network. So if you have your laptop, you're encrypting the data through a VPN server, which is in effect a tunnel, and it, to a degree, anonymizes you as you go out on the internet. So it's a service that lets you access the web safely and privately by routing your connection through a server and hiding your online actions. So what you do is you start your VPN client or your VPN service, and this software encrypts your data even before your internet service provider or coffee shops, if you're in Starbucks, for example, sees it. The data then goes to the VPN, and from the VPN server to your online destination. So anything from your bank website to a video sharing website to a search engine. And the online destination sees your data as coming from the VPN server and its location, and not the location of your computer, your physical location. So I can give you a quick example. So if we were to load here my own VPN, so I'll just put up VPN here. And what I'll do is I'll say, for argument's sake, let's say we're not in New York. Let's say we're in the United Kingdom. And then they probably have some different servers, so I'm going to go with London. So I'm in London, England. So I can connect to my VPN, which is an application I'm running on my box. And then once I've done that, I can go to Google. And if I type in news, so let's give it a shot here, Google News, and you'll notice that most of the sites are BBC, etc., etc., etc. So as far as Google's concerned, if I run a search here, news, I don't know, could be London, Soho. Now, as far as Google's concerned, for all intents and purposes, I am in England right now. My internet service provider, or my VPN provider, rather, the company whom I'm subscribing to for my VPN service, is routing me as though I'm in England. So that's one way of doing it. Now, the thing with this is your VPN, it's worth noting, is only as good as your VPN provider. So a couple things to keep in mind is that you can have three statuses. In some places, VPNs are legal. In America, they are legal. In some countries, they are required to be government approved. So government approved, they could put them on a particular dedicated line. So they're going to watch what takes place on the VPN traffic that travels through the line. But if you're an international company and you're working in an international location, then you likely have a VPN routing your encrypted traffic. But keep in mind, you're on a dedicated assigned line, or VPNs can be illegal. Now, as far as the VPN providers go, typically like a library, so libraries delete patron records, so people can't request what the library does not have with it. So it's common to have libraries, flush out some of their data for privacy purposes. So what you'll have is the VPNs flush them out as well. So that's the first part. Now I want to show you how this plays out on mobile. Okay, so on mobile phones, you're looking at my phone right now, I'll have an application, and it'll be the same application that I'm using on my laptop or my desktop. And if I'm in a Starbucks, or if I could be anywhere, then what I'll do is I'll just open up my VPN router, and again, I can select a location. So if I wanted to, I could say, well, let's say I'm in France, and there'll be a variety of servers again, depending on the network that you provide. So I don't know, typically I wouldn't select something like France. I mean, if I'm in a coffee shop, then I might want to grab something in USA, in New York. But essentially what I'm doing, right, when I'm sitting in a coffee shop working, is I'm going to load my VPN when I'm on my laptop, and I have encrypted data that's traveling between my laptop and the Wi-Fi router, and that's tunneling through. So in terms of people being able to sniff my traffic, it's going to appear as though it's from a VPN provider, and they'll have, there'll be less of a chance of them being able to detect what I'm doing. So it provides a layer of privacy. So now I've connected, and in this case I've connected through New York, and again you see I could have connected through, could be anywhere. I could say that I'm in Australia, or I'm in Japan or France, or whatever the case may be. But I've offered myself a layer of protection. So now when I go out on the internet, and I could search for anything here. Let's just search NYC, a really quick search. And as far as the Wi-Fi router is concerned, they're receiving encrypted data from my VPN application that's here on my phone. In this case, it's iOS. So that's interesting. So I have a laptop point of view, and I also have a mobile point of view, and that's good in particular if I'm using public Wi-Fi. So it could be hotel Wi-Fi, it could be coffee shop Wi-Fi, I could be in an airport that I'm traveling, etc., etc. You get the point. All right, now we're going to take a quick look at Tor. Okay, so moving past our conversation about virtual private networks, we have been talking about vertical search engines, so deep web products that are not indexed by Google spiders. And then we've extended that into virtual private networks. And now we're going to talk for a few seconds about Tor, the anonymity network. So if you are not aware, like the internet, it was developed by the US government, in this case, the United States Naval Research Lab. And Tor itself is a software that bounces your communications around a distributed network of 8,000 relays, currently around 8,000, run by volunteers around the world. And it prevents somebody from watching your internet connection, from learning what sites you visit. It prevents the sites you visit from learning your physical location, and it lets you access sites which are blocked. So in order to search the deep web, you will need to install Tor, the Onion router. Now I will say that you're encrypted in the middle, but you obviously must be concerned with where you enter Tor and where you exit Tor. So one example is if you do have a virtual private network, you do not want to be connected to it while using Tor, obviously, because it'll associate an IP with any activity. So there are issues like this to think about. So let's head over and we'll download the Tor browser. So you're going to go to Tor Project, and you will download a copy of the Tor browser, clicking download. And depending on your operating system, it'll load a copy, and I have a copy here. So once you've loaded, you want to check and see if you're connected to the Tor network. So we're going to type in check. We're going to type .tor project, and we're going to type .org, and this will let us know if you're connected. So congratulations, this browser is configured to use Tor, so we are connected to the Tor network. So now what I want to show you is when you think in terms of why would I want to use Tor. Now Tor content includes deep search engines, deep email providers, deep social networks and forums, deep chat rooms, deep markets, etc., etc. So there's a lot of information on Tor. The trick is to get valuable information, so content that you find to be of some value to you. And there's no telling where this is going to go in the future, so people are using it for privacy purposes, of course. But I'll give you an example of the kinds of information that you can see on Tor. So let me just show you a few things. So DuckDuckGo, we're familiar with DuckDuckGo, and DuckDuckGo does have a Tor site that you can search. So if you want to use a search engine with complete privacy, DuckDuckGo is far superior to Google in terms of providing you privacy when you do search. And I'll say the obvious is don't log into services when you're using, don't self-identify. So if you look at my screen right now, you'll notice that it has this odd shape, and that's because your browser has a fingerprint. So if I were to adjust this, then someone could pick up on the type, the resolution, say, of the screen that I'm using. So there are different ways of different fingerprints that we provide along the web. But in any case, I just want to show you DuckDuckGo can be searched. So I can search for anything in DuckDuckGo. Let me just type in, I want to search for information about New York education, whatever the case may be. Doesn't really matter. So we have this DuckDuckGo search that's taking place right now on the Onion router. So I can just go up here while it's loading. It's obviously it's taking a little bit of time here, but I can draw attention to the fact that you've got this .onion up here, this .onion, and that's why we call it the Onion router. But if you click on the Onion, what you'll see is my connection is being sent through the Netherlands, through Hungary, through Ukraine. I have a variety of relays. So of those 8,000 relays, what Tor is doing is it's selecting 3 and it's making a connection with those 3. So it's randomizing the 8,000, and and again you could start up a Tor circuit of your own if you wanted. I mean, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, and if anyone wants more information on Tor, that's where I recommend you go, is to EFF, the Electronic Frontier Foundation. But in this case, I have these 3, so I can have a new circuit for the site. So let me just do a new circuit here. Oh, you've noticed now my 3 hops include 3 Tor instances in these 3 locations. But it's interesting. So we do have DuckDuckGo set up, running it on Tor. So I'll just show you another couple of examples that I find interesting. So we could look at the New York Times on Tor. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to load, rather. You know what? Maybe I should just stop this current load, and I should head over. And these are just 1 or 2 bookmarks that I've just put in here for the purpose of walking us through some of this. So the New York Times has a .onion instance. Facebook has a .onion instance. So you may say, well, why Facebook? And I say, why Facebook? Given their track record. But if you're in a location and you want to use Facebook as a means of communicating as a journalist, and you want to anonymize your communications, then I think for journalists in particular, Tor is of great value. So that's something to look in. So we're hanging here, but I could say the New York Times, Facebook, DuckDuckGo. So inevitably there are different instances of Tor, and you can use Tor as a layer to provide you with access and anonymized access to the internet. So for our purposes, I think we should be more inclined to be using VPNs, but it's interesting to know about Tor because we do not know where this is going. It's hard to tell where it's going. So currently they have 8,000 relays, but there's no telling in the future what this infrastructure is going to look like. So we can just think of the early days of the internet. No one really realized what was taking place. So in the past, most websites would not be HTTPS, and now the websites that are not using HTTPS, we think of them as having less concern than they should for the users who are using their sites. So now it's an expectation that everything be HTTPS on a secured server. So who knows, in the future, could it be that more people use Tor? They don't have critical mass now, but it could take place in the future. All right, the only thing I want to tell you about otherwise than this is, let's just go back to our Google instance here, and I want to show you 2 things. So if you want to look at the OS systems, and these are just FYIs, but if you did want to have an operating system that took took the point of view if you're wanting to be anonymous quite seriously, then you have Tails, and then there's one more that we could look at, one more OSS, which is Cubes, and I think Cubes is quite advanced. So I really don't know that this is something that you would want to be looking into per se. But again, Cubes and Tails. So what happens with these is you're installing a private OS, and you're installing a live operating system that you can run on a flash drive or on a virtual machine. So in the case of Tails, just imagine walking into a library and having an operating system on your flash drive that you plug into the computer, and essentially you install this operating system, and you run yourself anonymously. You run an OS, and then once you remove your USB, then more or less you've uninstalled that instance of the OS. So if you want to, you can experiment rather with those. So now the obvious things to talk about If you log in when you're using some of these services, you self-identify, right? So you don't want to do that. The other is that there's a lot of illegal content and there are a lot of broken links, right? So it's a bit of a mess out there. The other thing is you do not want to, for those that use torrents for the right reasons, you do not want to torrent over the deep web. This is not something that you want to do. And the other thing is that you do not want to trust random sites. So you want to think in terms of obviously authority, but you do not want to trust random sites, right? It's not a good idea to be doing that. So other than that, I think our conversation pertaining to virtual private networks is the most salient, the most interesting, and the one that you should pay attention to. And you can experiment with some browser plugins, right, that provide you with, like TunnelBear as an example, that provides you with a degree of anonymity at the browser level, a service like TunnelBear, or you can get another VPN on your system. So there you have it, VPNs, Tor, and you have a few privacy operating systems. So hopefully you know more about this than you did previously. And again, if you're going to spend time looking into something, I think VPNs, virtual private networks, is what you should be interested in at the moment. All right, thank you very much.